everyone, this is Renee from Meadowlark Mystic, and I am doing a really fun tag. I've been watching everybody's response to this tag, and it is from the lovely Candy at Candy Soul and Soil. She put together a tag called Dating the Tarot 2020, and it is 10 questions. It's about all the decks that you know, they're not your favorites, but you still keep coming back to them, and the questions are different. So, you know, I think I was just overthinking this tag, and that's why it took me so long to do a response. But in any case, I'm going to jump right in. So the first question Candy asks is the Cheapskate Date. Who did you date because they were cheap as chips, and what was the outcome? So for me, it was the Mystic Mondays. When this deck was picked up by a mass market publisher after it was an indie deck, it was on sale on Amazon for like $16. And I had kind of hemmed and hawed about if I wanted this deck. I liked how pippish it was and minimal, but when I saw that it was that inexpensive, I was like, yes, please. So yeah, the Mystic Mondays would be my cheapskate deck. It's not the cheapest deck in my collection, but at about $16, it was worth it. And I really like this deck a lot. It's a great reader for me. I find it really good when emotions are running high. It's a little like the Fountain Tarot in that way. Okay, the next one, number 2, the Slow Burner. The one you weren't sure about on first meeting, but over time you suspect it's turning to love. I don't really suspect it's turning to love. I know it's love, and that's the Stone Tarot. And this is an independently published deck. I felt like the art was interesting when I first saw this deck. I'm sorry if I heard a little bit of glare. But over time, these images just really have become, I mean, not this image. They just really have become so near and dear to me. But when I first got it, I was like, oh yeah, that's cool. You know, it's interesting. And, you know, and some of the art is a little, you know, it's not, like this piece is very finished. It looks very finished. It looks very kind of sophisticated to my eye. And this piece too. But then when you get, of course, but this piece not so sophisticated, not so finished. The swords. Anyway, so there's kind of an inconsistency sometimes in the art, but I love it. So even though it feels more kind of raw, some of the minors, for example, it doesn't matter. I just love this deck so much. And it just built up over time, I guess. So that is the Slow Burn. But I'm kind of cheating because this is one of my favorite decks now. But it did start out slow. You know, it didn't become one of my favorites all at once. Okay, the next one is number 3, the Blind Date. Because we are impulsive humans and sometimes we just rush in, who did you date without looking? And that would be this deck, the Mystical Moments. I had seen that she was working on a tarot, and then I don't know, I stopped following her, and then after that I got off of Instagram, so I never saw all of these cards. I just saw some of them. Oh, this deck's all gonna be, anyway, and I didn't care. I wanted to buy this deck even if I hadn't seen all the images, and I rarely do that. I think this is actually the only deck that I've ever done that with, where I have bought it without seeing all the images. That's how often I do not go on blind dates. But it worked out well because I really like the Mystical Moments Tarot. So that is my blind date. Number 4, the Rebound. And the Rebound is the one you keep going to break up with but keep being pulled back together. And the Rebound for me is the Marseille Cat Tarot. I don't read with this very often. It's a good reader. There's nothing wrong with it. It's a strange hybrid of like Marseille with Rider-Waite-Smith meanings too. Like this is really great. 10 of Swords. Anyway, so in my mind, I think, well, you know, I haven't used the Marseille Cat Tarot in a really long time. I should probably pass it along. And then I open it, and then I proceed to flip through it, and then I just fall back in love with it again. I just can't get rid of it. But every time I think to myself, I really need to get rid of some decks. You know, it's getting kind of crowded in my chest of drawers. This deck will come to mind, and I'll be like, yeah, maybe I should, you know, finally move it on. And then I flip through it, and it's just like, no, that's impossible. It has one of my favorite death cards. So that is the Marseille Cat Tarot, and that would be my Rebound. Number 5 is the Surprise Love Affair. The one you thought would be just okay from the first meeting. However, it was love at first sight, and it took you by surprise. And that is this deck. It's a newer deck. It's the Superlunaris. I saw it on Kim's channel, Abundant Life Tarot, and I thought, oh, that looks pretty cool. And I love how inclusive it is. So it was at the end, it was at the end of last year. I was getting ready for my depth year, so I was like, well, if I'm gonna get this deck, I better get it. It looked pretty good. I did go to the website, so I was able to see all of the cards, so there wasn't anything that was just really terrible. And so then I purchased it, and I am so smitten with this deck. In my last video, I mentioned that it's definite deck love. The way people feel about, you know, certain decks that they just go on and on about. This is how I feel about this deck. I just love it. I love the cardstock. I even love the gilding, even though I know it's not gonna last. You know, I love the reinterpretations of some of the cards. This is the 2 of Cups. I love how inclusive it is. I love the color palette. I love how a lot of the cards are at the beach, although not this one. I love how some of them are modern, but then also some of them seem kind of in another time and place. Like, let's see, you know, he looks like he's in another time and place. He could be anywhere, you know, he could be in another time and place, or he could be modern, like at a wedding. He looks pretty modern, and yet he has that crown. But I don't mind, and sometimes it really bugs me. Like, I'm not a big fan of the faces in the sky, but also I love it. Little baby, love it. So yeah, this deck was a surprise love affair for sure. That's the Superlunaris. Number 6 is the Not My Type. So she says, the Not My Type date, the one you went on thinking it wasn't really your cup of tea, and then what happened? So that would be the Modern Spellcasters. I keep it in this apple box. So when I first saw this deck, and this is true for a few decks in my collection, I thought, ugh, like who would like this deck? I think of this deck as the Green Witch Tarot and the Thoth kind of went to a heavy metal or death metal concert. But its imagery really just kept coming up for me, and I started to think, maybe I should just get it and work with it. It is still a pretty intense and somewhat creepy deck. You know, the death card is particularly creepy, and I don't know, just some of the murky water, but I really like this deck a lot. It is not my type at all. It's very like, it's like, it's like hyper real, how hyper real fantasy. Like this kind of imagery is so not my bag. Like this guy's face is like on the ground. It is such a heavy metal cover of an album. And yet I really like this deck a lot. So absolutely not my type, but then I have grown to really, really appreciate it a whole lot. So that is the Modern Spellcasters for number 6. Number 7, the I may have to delete your number date. The one that really didn't work, but you still haven't broken up yet. What's stopping you? That would be, where is it? The Napo Tarot. So this deck is such a little stinker, and I either want it to read well for me, or I want to be able to move it on, and I can't, and I don't get either one. It reads better than it used to, but it's just not a good reader for me. I think it's because it has Thoth keywords on it, but really the personality of this deck is just kind of an a-hole. Still, even though I get better readings than I used to, and I had to use another deck to make it read well for me, but I just can't. I may have to delete your number, and yet I can't bring myself to, because I love the art so much. I think this art is so beautiful. And I did see that US Games just re-released this deck. So those of you who have been waiting and wanting this amazing art, it's available again on the US Games website. I mean, look at that Queen of Swords. So yeah, this is my number 7. I want to delete your number because you don't treat me well. I just can't. Look at those colors. Oh, so beautiful. Yes, so that is the Napo Tarot, and that's my number 7. Number 8 is Forever Love, True Love. Okay, this one might be on the favorites list, but I'm curious and couldn't resist. That's what Candy says. I'm just reading from her list. So, you know, I have several decks that are like true loves for me, but I decided to showcase the Japaridze. This deck will never, ever, ever leave my collection. I love it so much. Not only is it absolutely stunning, but it is such a great reader for me. I adore this artwork. I love how it's oil paintings and collage. This is one of my favorite 8 of Wands ever. It's got some strange majors. You know, my birth card in this deck is renamed War. That's not my favorite thing. But then you get this High Priestess card, which is so amazing, and this 2 of Wands, which is 2 of Fire. I trimmed this deck. This deck was out of print for a little while, but US Games has, again, republished it. I wish the cardstock was a little thinner because it's pretty stiff. It's a little bit better now that I trimmed it, but, oh gosh, I love this 9 of Cups. Yes, this is definitely Forever Love. Like, look at that tower. So great. And the 10 of Cups. Okay. Yes, the Japaridze is a definite Forever Love. That's number 8. Number 9, the Stormy on-off date. The one you can't stay away from. Equal parts passion, lust, and fighting. And for this one, I chose this deck, the Mystical Tarot. This is a great reader for me, but this deck has an attitude. I don't know anyone, oops, how was it all mixed up? I don't know anyone who has developed a relationship with this deck. This is completely trimmed, and hasn't had to contend with this deck's kind of snarky sense of humor and personality. Definitely not for the faint of heart, this deck. So it can be stormy. This deck always has something to say, and it never pulls punches, which, you know, sometimes you're just kind of like, wow, can you not be so mean? But it's also never like steered me wrong. So yeah, it's on again, off again, but I'll never get rid of it because it's an amazing reader. I just have to be in the right frame of mind to read with it. Okay, so that's my number 9. That's the Mystical Tarot. And the last, Friends with Benefits. And that would be, oh wait, no. Sorry, somehow I got off. Let's see. Oh, another blind date. Sorry, I'm going backwards a little bit. Another blind date, and this would be number 3, is the Art of Life Tarot. And the reason this one was a blind date is because, you know, it's hard to figure out or to see all of the quotes and all of the pieces of art in this deck. You know, like totally research every little bit. So when I bought this deck, I had not seen all the cards. So this one and the Tarot of Mystical Moments are the only 2 decks in my collection where I bought them without having seen every single card. I don't have to love every single card, I just have to be okay with it. But for this deck, because it was so much information, I didn't do that. And so that's, sorry, that's a little like backwards and forwards thing. Okay, so that was another number 3 for a blind date. And then, oh, the Friends with Benefits. That is the one you can run to without commitment, and you just kind of slide right back into, you know, a really comfortable relationship, and that would be the Sasuraibito. I realize my hand's kind of in the way, and my cards are often crooked. The Sasuraibito is such a great deck. It's so beautiful. I don't read with it very often. I don't know why. This kind of creeps me out a little bit. I love that Chariot. But whenever I do pick it up, it's like getting in conversation with a friend who like knows you so well. You don't have to kind of keep them up, you know, get them up to speed or anything. I love that 5 of Swords. So, oh, and I love that 2 of Swords. So this would be Friends with Benefits. I'm so glad I finally figured out how to do this tag because I love Candy's channel, and and this is one of my favorite 6 of Swords. I love Candy's channel and I really wanted to participate, but I was having a really hard time. Like I said, I think I was just overthinking these questions. So I hope you're doing well, and if anyone else is playing, I would love to see your video. Okay, bye-bye. Thanks, Candy.